How much I want to tell you that my heart, as fierce as a lion or tiger, does not crave slaughter. As he walked, he thought, to conceal my terrifying identity, to be able to get closer to you poor souls, I hid my claws and fangs, silenced my roar, and deliberately disguised myself as a small, insignificant person. This pleases me. When a victim lies dying in a pool of blood, struggling in my indifferent gaze, they must remember with tears how they disrespected me. However, this is not the purpose of my killing. Only money can drive me to open the floodgates of slaughter, because I am a wandering assassin, feared by all who hear my name. Yes, he told himself with a smile frozen at the corner of his mouth, I have no pity, and I do not forgive. I am as irresistible as fate itself, because I am a wandering assassin. He followed the address and entered a gambling hall, reputed to be the most prestigious casino in the Near East. No one can remember his appearance, ever. 2 minutes later, he quietly left. The shorter the time spent on each job, the better. He would collect his payment later. There were still plenty of people waiting eagerly for his services. Dalu indeed felt the need to eat breakfast before reluctantly leaving, with an unusual, indescribable irritation, as if he had just woken up from a nightmare. Lying around for too long had caused him to gain quite a bit of weight, making his stomach feel like a thick cushion that always got in the way when he tried to get out of bed, making him doubt whether he was really only 38 years old. The narrow and cozy bedroom was half of Dalu's world. Without urgent needs like eating, drinking, or relieving himself, he never left. Even if he had to momentarily leave for basic bodily functions, he was like a snail stripped of its shell, his sensitive, exposed soft flesh vulnerable to the hostile air. Disoriented, he hurriedly completed his business and retreated into the warm, self-scented shell to come back to life again. Good, quickly. Everything must be done quickly. Although he had just eaten a meal of snails and sparrows there, and kept nodding in approval of the taste, it was merely a spiritual satisfaction. His life system still required 2 pitiful sandwiches to keep it running. He needed these things in his stomach to have the energy to lie back on the bed and continue dreaming freely. Over the years, he had developed the most time-efficient method for his morning routine. First, he took out the bread and put it in the radiation oven to heat while he filled his mouth with tooth-cleaning solution and rinsed carefully. Dental health was very important. He rarely washed his face. He tore off the business memo the company sent him today from the kitchen table, retrieved the hot bread from the oven, poured a cup of vitamin drink, and carried everything into the bathroom to sit on the toilet. In a few minutes, everything was resolved, and he could return to his home within a home. The bathroom ceiling was still leaking. The guy upstairs was a real jerk. Note: something as trivial as a leaky ceiling and an inconsiderate upstairs neighbor can make life seem dark. Reality is such a fragile little darling. I should find a chance to give that guy a good scolding. The management office must be full of lazy bums. No one ever responded to his repair requests. The radiation oven might need replacing, and the window glass was filthy. But what does all this matter? None of it could diminish the excitement of life there. Let the windows get dirtier. Let the oven turn the bread to charcoal. Let the bathroom become a fish pond. It could never erase the fact that he was a big playboy, a professional adventurer, and an incurable gambler. As long as he could return to his bedroom. His hand touched the bedroom door, a familiar feeling washed over him, and the playboy was about to return. When the doorbell rang, Dalu cursed under his breath, determined not to answer. The bell rang twice more. He knew that anyone coming in person these days must have something important to discuss. He would have to sacrifice a little time to deal with it. He glanced at the monitor and saw a man in a blue work uniform outside. He had almost forgotten that he had asked the store to deliver today. Dalu opened the door, and the man pushed a small cart inside, unloading the bread, drinks, and everything else Dalu had ordered. Delivery was one of the few manual labor jobs still retained in this era, because hiring 20,000 delivery workers was much cheaper than building an automated sales system. Dalu tipped him double, compensating for the fact that this man couldn't stay in his bedroom as often as he did, nor could he frequently visit there, and he was indifferent to the worker's gratitude. The playboy's sense of self-satisfaction was still clinging to him. Now it was time to return to the bedroom. He lay comfortably on the bed, turned on his great and reliable personal network terminal with gratitude, and entered the network. Before transforming back into the Playboy, there were some necessary mundane tasks to handle. This dull work provided him with sandwiches, drinks, and a not insignificant amount of internet access fees. So, within him, the obscure and hard-working little company employees silently supported the big Playboy. The work was boring, but overall bearable. Dalla didn't encounter many colleagues in the office. Handling the accounts took little effort, and he completed a day's workload in about an hour. Many envied his position. It was a job that allowed for frequent flattery of the boss and might even lead to rapid promotion if done well. He could clearly count how many people were eyeing his seat, but he didn't care. An hour later, after finishing work, Dalu hurried back to the base's meticulously designed private station. In this fortress, he changed his appearance. The thick, cumbersome abdomen flattened visibly, his waist restored to how it looked at 25. His skin turned bronze, as if he had just taken a sunbath on the Caribbean coast. His face became thinner, his nose narrow and straight like a knife edge, and his thin lips carried a hint of a cynical smile, with a few crow's feet at the corners of his eyes. Adding a slightly flashy blue outfit, Mr. Xiao, the adventurer, playboy, and gambler, took the stage. Everything was different now, with passion, excitement, loud clamor, fine wine, and women surrounding him, filling the air he breathed, and gripping him like waves tossing a small boat. What is Cinderella's glass slipper? He could revel like this every day, without fearing the midnight bell. Dalano, Xiao stood at the door of the teleportation device outside his private station, scanning the directory. Whistling, he pressed the button for casino and stepped into the teleportation device with a flamboyant stride befitting his persona. Instantly, he was behind the wheel, his luxury jet car carrying him across the vast desert. He could have jumped to his destination in a moment, but he enjoyed the thrill of roaring across the desert while singing loudly. Just as he had heard that some people here playing saints enjoyed wandering the 700-mile desert in rags. The valet at the casino entrance was virtual and guided him into an unbelievably grand hall. But he didn't hear the familiar laughter, the sound of chips, or the shuffling of cards. Instead, a low hum, a blend of many voices whispering, greeted him. People in the hall stood respectfully crowded together, with two policemen standing stiffly in front of them. Mr. Xiao the gambler caused a stir as soon as he entered. Gasps and low cries emerged from the crowd. All eyes he could see widened, some even rolling back, and a few ladies fainted gracefully. The two policemen exchanged a serious glance and approached him. Xiao felt something was wrong, but the policeman had already flanked him. He didn't know if these were real government employees or nosy gamers. Zhao's current persona instinctively disliked uniformed representatives of state power. He wanted to make a few half-provocative, half-joking remarks, but the policeman spoke first. "Your name?" "Xiao," he replied with a smile. "Your real name?" the policeman asked sternly, "and your real address." Dalu hesitated for a moment in his heart, but Xiao still whispered a few words to the policeman. The policeman nodded, each taking an arm and dragging him forward. Xiao joked, "Has someone accused me of cheating at gambling?" The policeman replied, "We want you to see something." "What is it?" Xiao asked. The policeman turned his head to scrutinize his face, as if trying to see through his lies. After a moment, the policeman said, "You're going to be shocked." Xiao was indeed shocked. In the corner of the hall was a cart used for transporting the dead, and on it lay a corpse, his own corpse. The two policemen looked back and forth between the body and Xiao, as if trying to determine any differences. Xiao felt dizzy for a moment and looked around the hall awkwardly, as if being killed. Lying here, and then returning as if nothing had happened was quite an embarrassing affair. One of the policemen spoke. Xiao realized the other had never said anything, carefully choosing his words. "This may sound strange, but do you know this person?" "I don't know him," Xiao answered firmly. The policeman looked at him sincerely and said, "I'd bet that you and he have some connection." Xiao said, "There is some connection. This person admires me and imitates my look. See how well he's done it." He found the situation slightly amusing and almost laughed as he spoke. The policeman shook his head. The Network Management Bureau doesn't allow two people to appear with the same appearance. He stated firmly, "This is probably your corpse." Xiao laughed twice to show his appreciation of the joke. The policeman looked at him seriously and said, "I'm telling you, it's not impossible." He glanced at the other, who remained silent, making Xiao feel they were unfathomable. "Even if this corpse isn't you," the policeman continued, "you're still in danger, because it means someone wants to kill you. Someone wants to kill a dark-skinned, blue-clothed casino regular." Xiao said, "I agree with you. You're quite insightful." The policeman's sternness bounced Zhao's quips back silently. Xiao scratched his shirt button out of boredom. The policeman said, "We're in charge of murders in this area. You shouldn't go back for now. We'll take you to the station for protection." Xiao protested, "No way. How long are you going to detain me? My body is still lying on the bed. If no one gives me in 4 drip, I'll starve to death." Suddenly, he thought of something, grew nervous, and whispered, "If that killer breaks into my house and sees a helpless fat man lying on the bed?" "Oh no." The policeman looked at him with interest and asked, "You're originally a fat man?" Xiao realized he had misspoken and asked, "So what?" "Nothing," the policeman said. "I've noticed many people look very different here from what they do in real life." Xiao said, "That's not news to you." The policeman ignored him and continued, "Not just different. Sometimes it's completely opposite." He looked at the people in the hall, seemingly talking to himself. "Here is a world of infinite freedom." Infinite freedom. Xiao remained silent, lost in thought. The two policemen simultaneously took his arms and led him out. Xiao suddenly stared at the policeman who never spoke and asked, "What language do you speak?" "He doesn't talk," the other replied. Xiao looked deeply at him and asked, "Are you really policemen?" "We're government employees," the man said, "which is what you mean by real, right?" He emphasized, "We are definitely qualified to handle your case." They got into a police car outside. Once the door closed, Xiao found himself inside the police station. Many policemen were coming and going, all clearly virtual. It wasn't surprising. In an organization, the real brains often consisted of only 2 people, while the others were just eyes, hands, and feet. Xiao chose a chair and sat down. The policeman handed him a cup of tea, saying, "Just pretend. You can't expect good tea in the station." Xiao took a small sip, and it indeed tasted terrible. The policeman sat down opposite him, resting his chin in his hand, scrutinizing him. The mute sat beside him. Xiao took another sip of tea and asked, "When are you going to let me go?" The policeman said, "It might not take long. It'll be quick." Xiao felt uneasy under his gaze and asked, "What are you staring at?" The policeman shook his head and said, "I'm pondering you as a person. I like studying people, all kinds of people's faces. Here, a person's face reveals something about their true nature." His voice grew smaller, as if he were talking to himself, and then suddenly he raised his voice. "Why would someone want to kill you?" Xiao was startled and asked, "Who?" "The one who killed you," the policeman said with interest. "Witnesses at the casino said it was a shadow, a person like a light and shadow. The action was clean and swift, faster than anyone could react, and he was gone while you were already down." Xiao said, feeling a bit resentful. They describe it quite vividly. The policeman didn't hide his admiration. He erased all the memories from the scene recorder just in that brief moment. "A remarkable individual. A professional," Xiao said. In the end, the policeman asked why. "I don't know," Xiao said, feeling wronged. The policeman pondered, "You're good at gambling, aren't you? Have you been so good that some people might be jealous?" Xiao said decisively, "That's impossible. You know the money here is fake, just like everything else. It's only for use here. No one would kill over losing a bit of fake money, would they?" The policeman suddenly leaned close and said, "There's nothing impossible here. Many people believe that everything here is real." He slowly sat back in his seat. "Those online killers, do they get paid real money?" "No, it's the fake money you mentioned. The problem is they've reversed day and night. Forgotten whether it's a butterfly dreaming of Zhuangzi or Zhuangzi dreaming of the butterfly. Do you understand what I'm saying?" Xiao shook his head. "I don't understand the butterfly thing, but I get your point. Sometimes I wish here were real, but no one forgets that their body is still lying in the bedroom. That's what makes them even angrier." The policeman said. They know they're a big shot. Yet at the same time, their other half is still lying on a crumpled bed, waiting to eat a cheap meal delivered by a delivery man. Xiao sighed and said, a sandwich. I'm used to eating sandwiches. The policeman smiled and said, is that so? I'd recommend the boxed meals nutritious and delicious. I like them. He looked into Zhao's eyes. Just that insignificant little thing supports the extravagant revelry here. That's what I sometimes think, Xiao said in surprise. Without 2 sandwiches, there's nothing here. You're a normal person, the policeman said. Xiao couldn't tell if he was being praised or mocked. After a moment of silence, the policeman said, forget it, discussing the motive for murder is useless. Crimes here often stem from the subconscious. Whatever a person can do in their dreams, they can do here. Have you read Freud? Xiao asked. The policeman didn't confirm or deny it but said, Freud had a disciple, Adler, whose books are also worth reading. Xiao smiled, a bit nervously, and said softly to the policeman, I have a friend who used to be an online cop. He was fired after an accident. He told me that when they're on duty, they sleep in a special chair at the online police club, which they call the White Box. After work, they gather for meals in the club's cafeteria. They never eat boxed meals. The policeman listened with interest. Xiao noticed that the mute seemed a bit distracted. Xiao continued, you've brought me here for an hour now. You haven't told me when I can leave. You're not using a psychological filter to catch the killer, and you haven't notified other local online cops. You even asked for my real address, which can be found at the online police headquarters. The policeman smiled. So what? I bet. Xiao looked at him with sharp eyes. You're not real policeman. Having completed those necessary little tasks, he decided to go collect the payment for his kill. The recent trivial duties left him feeling slightly depressed. Never mind. In a lifetime, one cannot avoid doing some boring things against one's will. Even Hercules once wore jewelry as a woman's servant. He took a deep breath to expel the last bit of discontent from his heart, then shook his wings. They unfolded instantly from behind his shoulders. He took a few strides on his massive talons into the wind and smoothly lifted into the air. Flying, in the form of a great eagle, he soared over virtual distances, seeking his destination from 10,000 meters high. The island was below. He contracted his body, diving like a raindrop. The island stretched out in all directions to meet him. The stones on the ground were clearly visible. With a bang, he spread his massive wings, creating a gust of wind that nearly knocked down the virtual servants at the palace gate. This was the shape-shifting, elusive wandering assassin. He calmly retracted his black wings, returned to human form, and followed the servant into the palace. In his view, spending time and imagination to build such a hybrid of a Greek temple and an ancient Arab fortress was quite boring. It showed that the owner of this place had a chaotic value system. And a music concert too. Look at that, look at that. A row of women in white robes, singing while clutching their bellies. An exaggerated golden throne, and the black guys sitting on it. The black man stood up. The women silently exited the hall. The black man stepped down from his throne and stood before him, looking down at him. Yes, this guy might be over 2 meters tall like a bronze giant. He wore a broad-bladed short sword at his waist. But so what? If necessary, the wandering assassin could pluck a hair and kill him with it. All these powerful people are just a facade, all bluff. Someone has seen him, the black giant said in a voice like a great bell. He hesitated for a moment before realizing whom the black man was referring to. Then his face showed a cold expression of having been insulted. Exactly. The black man said, my trusted servant told me that the man you killed with extraordinary means, that clown, is back in the casino, flaunting and jumping around. That's impossible. The black man spoke in a theatrical tone. It's him. My servant may not be a wandering assassin, just a virtual person, but he's my walking eyes. My eyes don't lie. That jumping clown stood by his own corpse, indifferent, making sarcastic remarks. I paid you with your weight in gold to ensure that his mouth would never speak again. Yet your extraordinary means seem to have only tickled him. The wandering assassin reluctantly forgave the black man's words of insult, which were merely a sign of a lack of self-control. The issue was how he, an infallible agent of destruction, could have made such a mistake. He ignored the black man's glaring amber eyes and thoughtfully walked a lap around the hall. When he returned to the black man, his expression was composed. "Perhaps your walking eyes weren't wrong," he said, raising a hand to stop the black man from interrupting. "But neither was I. I didn't realize that guy was special and treated him like an ordinary person." The black man couldn't help but interject. "What's special? He's a clown, a babbling monkey, a hippo." The wandering assassin ignored his ranting and coldly said about 1 in a million people is like him. Cynical, or rather, always sober. Most people, struck like that by me, subconsciously believe they're dead, and their souls truly die becoming permanent idiots. But this person, even when gambling in the casino and losing himself in the thrill, was still coolly aware of the outside world deep in his soul. Although I killed him here, his consciousness could still calmly withdraw, leaving only a shell behind. The black man watched him warily, hesitating as he asked, "You mean he knowingly left after being killed and then returned? Is that it? Maybe he forgot." "What? He forgot that the black wings of death just swept over him?" The black man's nerve-wracking use of poetic language continued. The wandering assassin said, "Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night, seemingly seeing something terrifying. But do you remember the content of every nightmare? I don't care about your theories." The black man spread his long arms and shouted, "You call yourself a wandering assassin, but you couldn't even take down a fool. I could send any of my servants to do what you did, maybe better, and get more applause. Just keep making excuses here. Maybe that guy has a doppelganger, or maybe you're nearsighted." The wandering assassin coldly watched the black man's twisted face. His long-winded rant seemed to come from far away. There were 25 ways to kill this idiot immediately without leaving a trace. But that man wasn't taken care of, which would tarnish my reputation. That's why this fake Othello dares to spit in my face. I'll show him that no matter how pretty your excuses, you can't deny that you've taken my deposit. The job isn't done yet, and I don't like things half-finished. The black giant concluded his passionate speech. The wandering assassin merely said, "I don't like things half-finished either," and slowly turned to leave. The black man called after him, "What are you going to do? Kill him again and let him escape like a cicada shedding its skin? I have other ways. Listen to me." The black man urgently called him back. "I can't tolerate this going on. No matter what, he must disappear. If it can't be done here, take this is his real address. Go and save your wandering assassin's honor." The wandering assassin was unimpressed by the black man's sinister plan. "I have a better idea. What could be better than knocking on his door and shooting him in the head?" "Voluntary death," the wandering assassin said, staring deeply into the black man's face. "You might not believe it, but when the time comes, everyone will subconsciously sentence themselves to death." He clearly saw the black man's thick curls turning white layer by layer. And he continued, "The moment of its arrival takes countless forms: fear, despair, fatigue, sorrow, physical pain." He studied the black man's newly wrinkled forehead and gradually sagging cheeks, and aging. When these become more unbearable than death, people will unknowingly, voluntarily end their own lives. He supported the old black man, who was collapsing from heart failure, and kindly asked, "Do you still think my honor urgently needs protecting?" The black man, clutching his chest with trembling hands, was speechless. The wandering assassin released his death grip on him, allowing him to recover gradually. "The real address you gave me will also come in handy. I can't find him now, but I can find his network terminal at that address and directly control him. Let's see, this place looks familiar." "You're in luck." Without another glance at the black man, he turned and left, thinking, pretentious fool, he should realize he barely escaped with his life. Preparing to enter search mode, he recalled one of the black man's words and pondered. "What is a hippo?" "Psychological filters," the policeman said, "are useless. Our opponent is someone who can erase the memory of the scene recorder. I believe few people can handle him, so I didn't notify other online cops." I haven't encountered an enemy like this in a long time. Xiao looked skeptically at the two policemen, thinking they're fake. If they're real cops, then this is gross negligence. What has the world come to? There are far more criminals in this world than there were a century ago. Here unleashes people's latent desires. The policeman crossed his arms, swaying as he spoke. Opening the box unleashed disaster. But hope was left inside. Xiao thought. The policeman said, the virtual world has given them countless unexpected abilities. I'm thinking about what methods he might use to deal with you. No need to deal with me. A few more years like this, and I'll die of obesity, hypertension, and a stroke. Xiao thought, lying on a crumpled bed, clutching my personal network terminal, holding half a sandwich. A chaotic world. The policeman sighed. A desperate person, Xiao thought. He suddenly felt disheartened, overwhelmed by sorrow. The policeman stared at him. You look like a martyr. A sacrifice, Xiao muttered. Good, he said. That means you're sensitive and your emotions are easily stirred. Things are going well. I've got him in my grasp. You look terrible, the policeman said with concern. Xiao replied, I'm just tired. What's the point of continuing like this? The policeman watched him intently and asked, What did you say? I said it's meaningless, Xiao said, feeling too tired even to speak. Don't mind me. Both policemen simultaneously jumped up and grabbed him. He's coming, the policeman said softly, his tone tense or excited as he pressed down on Zhao's shoulders. The mute grabbed Zhao's chest with both hands and yanked. Xiao felt something slip out of his body. He saw the mute carry Xiao over to the chair opposite him, but Xiao felt he was still sitting in his original spot. It was a moment of utter confusion. Xiao anxiously wished for a mirror to see if the person sitting in his place was really him. He saw the mute place Xiao on the chair and then sit down in a Xiao. No, they merged into Zhao's body. Not bad, the policeman said in his ear, that's you. In the psychology of death, this is called self-isolation protection. The Xiao opposite looked haggard, as if enduring great pain. Relax, the policeman's voice said. Open your heart. Trust me completely, because I am you now. Suddenly, the wandering assassin encountered a formidable resistance. It wasn't the original strength of this person's personality, he had reinforcements. This world is still young, a voice echoed in his heart, just like you. It seems weary, but it's full of vitality inside. But he saw the Xiao opposite becoming more and more haggard. My partner is locking onto the assassin's psychological zone. But never mind that, the policeman's voice said. Focus on your feelings. You are one with life. Think of the past. Think of your mother. My mother. Xiao thought. Or perhaps he let his consciousness drift in time and space. I haven't thought of her for many years. She lived in a world without virtualization, a pure woman. Warmth melted him. The light above the cradle was bright, stinging his eyes slightly. That was the pain of sprouting. The world was a blinding light. Absorb, grow. I've worn out countless pairs of shoes, running tirelessly. Didn't you also have a youth when your heart would beat for no reason? Let's relive that. Indeed, he remembered his distant youth, an era when people were fascinated by streams, forests, and blue skies, and many laughed and jostled in parks. He saw himself scooping water from the stream. Not only that, he saw a short-haired girl leaning on his shoulder. He heard vague singing. He heard whispered words in his ear. The once existing world came vividly alive. Yes, at that time, he was alive. Not just that, the past, the laughter, and the tears, the heartbreak, all so fresh. Not just that. Do you see them? Yes. Everything is so full of life. They thrive in the ever-renewing world, carefree. The world exists. It's not just in my mind. It's out there, no matter what you think. It's in the eyes of children. I want to live like this. I want my life to continue forever. Children. Yes, the threads that were fluttering are thickening, but the icy wind that is my blade will still cut them. For billions of years, death has been the ruler of the world. The only ruler, and I am its messenger. Pain. Physical, mental, these are my blades. You self-important garbage. Yes, a tree has sprouted, but it will wither one day. All authorities, all noble people, all authorities will be trampled under death's foot. You Little Tree is no exception. Sensing his opponent's extraordinary nature, the wandering assassin searched through his arsenal. Despai, Despai, my blade is sharp and keen. It's also a net, from which no fish can escape. But he was astonished to find it difficult to move against the wind. The wind carried an unsettling scent, unfamiliar. The tree had grown, hard to shake. But this is my world. What are those? They're growing too fast, too fast. I can't control it. The tree's branches are already towering, shading the ground. They are beyond my destruction. Wundering Assassin. The black man's idea was right from the start. Knock on his door. Shoot him in the head. I have his real address. I have an antique gun. Dalla forgot what the policeman said to him last. He sat up in bed, excited. Yet that excitement, like the thrill of adolescence, ebbed away after just half an hour. He wearily left the bedroom and sat in the chair in the living room. Seeing the dirty windows, he remembered the leaky bathroom ceiling, the frequently malfunctioning radiation oven, and the dull work. He sat there thinking, not knowing how much time had passed, until the doorbell rang. At this point, although I have a bit of self-awareness, I couldn't help but jump out. I want to imitate the American detective Ellery Queen and say something. Ladies and gentlemen, the case is closed. Anyway, I've told you everything. Have you figured out what's going on? Dalla looked at the monitor screen. The person outside was unfamiliar. Besides, he hadn't seen a real girl in years, much less thought a girl would ring his doorbell. He almost nervously opened the door, touched the door frame, then touched his nose. The girl was straightforward, getting straight to the point. I'm here to try the sandwich you mentioned. Dalla could only manage to say, please come in. He stepped aside, and the girl entered first. Dalla breathed a sigh of relief and remembered to look at her from behind. Her hair was long, black, and smooth. Dalla shook off his awkwardness and didn't rush to tidy up the living room. After all, he was 38 years old. The girl handed him a black card, and Dalla took it, seeing small embossed letters on it. Leibing. Central Institute of Technology. Wait a minute. This kind of card, when inserted into a computer, could pull up a lot of information about the owner. Dalla looked at her again, and she smiled. We only parted an hour ago. You told me this address yourself. You. Dalla pointed at her. The girl said, it's me. I'm that policeman. I told you, many people look completely different there from reality. She casually chose a chair to sit in. Actually, I'm still a university student, but the government did hire a few amateurs like me as online cops. I need to earn some tuition money. What about your silent partner? The girl seemed to consider her words before saying, we are the same person, but I can come and go freely, while he is forever trapped there. Dalla was silent for a while, unable to think of anything to say, then murmured bread. I'll try it and see how it compares to my box meals. Lei Bing said as she headed to the kitchen without waiting for an invitation. She opened the freezer. Dalla followed her and said, the radiation oven isn't working well. The emitter needs replacing. The girl replied without looking up as she handled the bread. My dad could fix anything. Men these days have regressed. After she finished preparing the bread, they both returned to the living room. The doorbell rang again. See who it is? Lei Bing said. The delivery man, Dalla muttered as he opened the door. He started to tell the person outside, I didn't ask you to come. But his words got stuck in his throat. He saw a small, pale man at the door, holding up an old metal weapon, a gun. The gun was almost pressed against Dalla's fat belly. The scene was almost comical. The visitor looked more nervous or excited than the homeowner. His face, like that of a downtrodden poet, was contorted, his chin trembling, his lips turning blue. His gun hand was relatively steady, but he gripped it so tightly that his knuckles were white. In that instant, Dalla understood. This person couldn't possibly shoot him. He puffed out his belly, shook his head, and stared into the delivery man's eyes, taking the gun from him. He encountered some resistance, but it wasn't strong. He grabbed the delivery man's hand and, without a word, pulled him inside. The delivery man obediently followed. The door closed. Only then did Dalla see that the girl was watching them, her hand on the table, her face pale. The delivery man squatted down, curling up tightly, as if he wanted to shrink into a geometric point. He hugged his knees, rocking back and forth, crying and saying, "I almost did it. I almost." Dallas said, "You almost shot me dead." He turned to Lei Bing. "Are you okay?" The girl sat in the chair and said, "I didn't expect it. I thought I could handle it." "You thought?" Dalla was surprised. "You knew he." Lei Bing said, "Of course. I had a mental battle with his thoughts. If I couldn't predict his actions, what kind of online cop would I be? The other cops are downstairs." The delivery man didn't seem to care about what she said, lost in a near hysterical daze. The girl hesitated, approached him, and said, "Just now, I found I wasn't as strong as I am there. I almost fainted from fear. I think you're the same." The delivery man kept rocking, saying, "I'm a delivery man. I'm just a delivery man." Lei Bing understood his meaning and said, "Good that you know it now. Who hired you?" Dalla couldn't help but ask. The delivery man raised his head for the first time, looking puzzled. "A big black guy." "A black guy?" Dalla exclaimed. "I've never been to Africa. He really hates you. He called you a hippo." The delivery man recalled the word that had confused him. There's no way to describe Dalla's expression when he heard this sentence. It was neither shock nor anger, but a mix of intense emotions. He marched into the leaky bathroom with the swagger of a fat man walking briskly. He grabbed a stick from behind the door and began banging on the water pipes. He banged for half a minute. Then he walked into the living room, opened the door wide, and stood there, arms akimbo, belly out, waiting. He didn't wait long. A tall, skinny middle-aged man with a stubbled face and pale complexion, wearing slippers, came angrily to confront him. There must be something to premonition in this world. The man took one look at the people in the room and their odd expressions, and his heart sank. His puffed-up chest deflated, and his eyes wavered. Dalu was breathing heavily. He pointed at the cowering delivery man, then at the gun on the table, then at the skinny man, without saying a word. The skinny man's eyelids turned a comical red, his thick lips trembling as he stammered out, "Who told you to insult me?" "Insult you?" Lei Bing seemed incredulous. "For that?" That stubbled man's almost tearful expression was indescribably laughable and sigh-worthy. At that moment, the man childishly stuck out his neck, his Adam's apple rolling a few times, and finally turned to Lei Bing as if it didn't matter who she was and complained to her. "He insulted me, called me a donkey, twice in a row. He even insulted my parents. That's because you called me a hippo first," Dalu retorted, stressing each word. He turned to Lei Bing and said, "You don't know what a hippo is, do you?" I had to look it up in the Encyclopedia of Extinct Animals to understand how deeply he insulted me. Lei Bing was bewildered by the two men's complaints and involuntarily assumed the role of mediator, asking, "So, what exactly did you argue about?" "Water pipes," both men said at once. Dallas shot the skinny man a glance and, relying on his 180 pounds of dominance, took over the conversation. "He keeps leaking water into my bathroom." The skinny man said, You just bang on the pipes without reason." The delivery man suddenly looked up and yelled in a high-pitched voice, "You fought over that?" "No need to cry foul," Lei Bing said. "You've killed more than one person there." "Did you ask for reasons?" The delivery man buried his head and sobbed, choking out, "But what are we? What are we?" When the police came to take them away, the delivery man was ashen-faced and curled up into a ball. The skinny man was trembling. His whole body slumped as he urgently shouted at Dalla, I didn't. Dalla felt terrible. He suddenly felt as if the skinny man was someone very close to him, as if he had never hired anyone to harm him, only quarreled a few times. He wanted to shout, "I don't hate you," but they were both taken away. Dalla suddenly felt very stifled. He went straight to the window and pushed it open, pushing the dirty window he hadn't touched in years. A fresh breeze, so fresh it brought tears to his eyes, surrounded him, reviving a long-lost sense of the seasons. Because no one had cared for it in so long, the old world outside appeared gloomy and dull. The city was gray, draining any desire for life. But within it was a dream, a massive, bizarre, rapidly spinning dream of the city. Everyone was irresistibly caught up in this colorful whirlpool, like a small fish. Compared to this grand dream, what do the occasional sighs of a few small people matter? As Dalu stood there in a daze, Lei Bing cautiously tapped him from behind. Dalu turned his head, and the girl said, "I've already eaten your bread. It wasn't great, but the good thing is it's very filling."